The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB-TV. Hot topics, food, fun, entertainment, and serious business. Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese.
There's a crisis here in Southern Nevada, and it's one that a lot of people don't really see and don't really recognize, because even though we talk about it a lot in the media, it's still one of those crises, I think, that doesn't really get enough attention. And we're talking about homelessness and finding shelter and providing programs for people who are really in need here in Southern Nevada. We've got two guests today here who are both tackling the problem of homelessness, but in two very different areas and in two very different ways. And we're going to talk about the ways that you in the community can help them out in some of the simplest forms, as in one of my guests who's going to be on the next half is a bottled water drive. Who would have ever thought that thing would take off like this? But I think that people really want to help out as much as they can. So we're going to start today with Stacey Lockhart, who is almost like, I can't say you're the brand new director anymore, because
Not
you were
anymore.
on our share. She was on our show when we were on our other studio over on Torrey Pines and Smoke Ranch. And she is here to talk about the Shade Tree Shelter. It's on 1 West Owens Avenue. And this is a shelter for homeless and abused women and children in their time of crises. Now, the Las Vegas Rescue Mission, we're going to have Bob David on later on to talk about the Las Vegas Rescue Mission, which is a much wider program. But yours is a little bit more targeted to women who, whether or not they have children, or women and children who need shelter, and the programs provided to not only give them shelter in a time of crisis, but to help them get back on their feet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So the Shade Tree was started in 1989. We have been in our current location at the corner of Owens and Main for the last 17 years.
Wow.
And we stay true to the original mission of helping women and children in their time of crisis. About 60% of our population right now are domestic abuse and violence victims. The other 40% are economic homeless women and families, and it could be for any reason that they have lost their home.
Right.
So we are a shelter, but we are so much more than that. We are really a program. The people we can help best are women coming in who truly want to get back up on their feet, self-sufficient and independent. So we have life skill classes. They all have case managers. We have a workforce readiness program. Right now, we're averaging about 25 women a month gaining employment.
That's amazing.
And great companies, great jobs. I have really put forth, I don't want repeat customers, so to say. And if women are coming back to us, time and time again, something's not working right. And
they don't get to stay with you forever. I mean, when they come in, they can stay as long as 90 days, but they've got to get their act together and get on the road.
They do, and we have two, like I said, very diverse populations. Women who come to us who have lost their home for whatever reason economically, they'll come. They've got their ID. They have birth certificates. They may have a PhD or a master's even, and they can move pretty quick. They need that immediate shelter, but we can get them right into the workforce readiness program and work with them on finding employment, getting them back on their feet as quick as possible. Domestic abuse victims, it takes a little longer. When you, as I say, flee a burning building, you don't always think about what to take with you. Right. They may come to us and have no identification. They may not have birth certificates for their children, or their abuser may have taken them and hidden them. They may have been a homemaker and never worked. Right. Or just not worked in the recent, months. And getting documents again, getting your identity back takes time to work through the system. We write a lot of checks to vital statistics in other states. I write a lot of checks to pay for IDs and driver's license, the DMV. And so, like I said, two very diverse populations, different different, you could say, trauma or background they're
Right.
bringing with them. And so we really have to develop case plans. It's very individual. Everybody has their own reason for being there, their own set of challenges that need to be addressed, obstacles they need to overcome.
Right.
And we've got an incredible staff that is there trained to work with both populations of women.
Right.
We have our Children's Activity Center there. It's not a daycare, but activity center where moms can come in and do activities with their kids. We do
Because they've been displaced, they've been uprooted from the only home they have, and now they're in this very foreign environment. And so you're trying to create as much of a, not a home base, but something where they're comfortable, because they're
something
they're-
warm
yes.
and comforting. And kids deserve to be kids.
Yeah.
Just because there is this, situation going on in their family at the moment, it's a blip in time.
Right.
And it shouldn't dictate their future at all. I talk to teenagers in there that are with their moms about, what are you doing after high school? Where do you want to go to college? What do you want to do? I think the expectations for those children are the same as any other child that's living in a middle-class neighborhood in a home.
Yeah.
You want them to not focus on that at all. They need to focus on just being a kid and doing the things that kids do. Zappos has taken them to a soccer game. They've been to hockey games. We did a Chuck E. Cheese day over the holidays. They go on field trips to the Springs Preserve, a variety of different things that just let them be kids.
And one of the other features that's so important is Noah's House.
Yes.
Because we've talked about this before, where you actually have women and men maybe, who don't want to leave their abuser because they don't want to leave their pets behind.
Well, exactly. And, domestic abuse really is a power play, I guess you could say. And just like threatening children, abusers will threaten pets. And I don't know about you. I've had dogs, I've had cats. We had a hamster once. But pets are family.
Right.
And so to think of leaving, your furry friend behind.
It'd be like leaving your child behind. And people will, those of you who've not experienced this love, you'll think like, well, that's just a dog or just a cat. No, it's not. It's not. It's much deeper. And especially, it's not just for the woman who's leaving, the man who's leaving. For the kids, this is a huge emotional connection.
Well, that might be that young child's best buddy.
Right.
You get a puppy and he's everywhere with you. You do everything. It's true. Nobody wants to leave their best friend behind.
Right.
So having Noah's as a partner on our campus allows us to shelter those pets. And we have cuddle rooms up there. They can go up and spend time with their pets. They still care for them. They walk them. Right now we have the cutest, I call it a pocket chihuahua. I think he fits in my hand. He's so adorable.
Right.
And we've got some kittens up there. We've had some guinea pigs this year. We just had a bunny. We've had birds. Pets are pets, and they're part of your life. And when you move somewhere, you don't leave family behind.
Right.
You take everything with you that you can. So it's a very important part. I think it's also for our domestic abuse victims. It's a big part of the healing process.
Yeah. Yeah.
They give you love. They're unconditional. They give you comfort. And being able to spend time with your pet allows
Huge.
you to leave some of the other stuff behind for now.
Right. Now, one of the things that's moving forward with your program, and this is really huge, you're working with Arnie Stock of Veterans Village on getting your transitional program that had been shut down from lack of funding, because what was so important about this, and I really didn't realize until I was talking to you and talking to the folks at Safe Nest and talking to Bob David here, once you get the person in the shelter, your main job is to get them out as much as possible and to get them on their feet and to get them functioning in the community. But if you've got somebody who doesn't have any life skills, it's not like you can just sit them down and say, okay, figure this out. If you haven't ever even had a checkbook, let alone balance a checkbook, if you've never even had, I actually talked to a guy who had never gone grocery shopping. He needed to be taken by the hand and shown how to go grocery shopping. To those of us who grew up grocery shopping, you think, well, doesn't everybody know? No, if you grew up in a home where you didn't even have these life skills, somebody's got to take you by the hand and show you how to go to Smith's or whatever shop you want to go to, and this is how you do it, and this is how you scan, and this is how,
Well, I
simple
think
things.
it's very similar to leaving home and either moving out on your own for the first time or even going to college, something
Right.
like that. I grew up, I had a stay-at-home mom. I came home from school every day and she was already starting dinner. I was like, what's for dinner? Not what am I making for dinner? She did our laundry. So even my own daughter is getting ready to graduate from college, but over the last 4 years, doing her laundry, being responsible for making sure her rent is paid and the bills in the household that she has with her roommates, that those things are paid. Going grocery shopping, menu planning, cleaning.
Yes.
My daughter's room, I used to walk in and with a trash bag in my hand, and I was like, you know how this works. If it's on the floor and I pick it up, it goes out. So now.
But she had somebody reinforcing her. She had another two responsible adults, because you're married. So she had a mother and a father who were interacting with her. You're talking about these women who are coming into your. They may not have had an authority
good role model at all. At all.
Right.
Even in the shelter, the women participate in maintaining the shelter, helping keep it clean. Well, some of them have never been taught how to really clean. That you take out the trash when it's full, that when you clean a bathroom, you don't just, kind of brush over something, you really clean it. Budgeting, okay, so now I've got a job, I'm getting paychecks. Okay, great, but you need to plan. How far does that money go?
Right.
We have classes that teach families how to feed your family on $10 a day. It's a couponing class. I remember my mom going to the grocery store with those little holders with all the coupons in it. And she used to tell me that's how we could afford to take a vacation or things like that, because she budgeted and found all the little savings she could. But some people have never had that opportunity.
Right.
So with the transitional living, you're right. We don't want it to be so comfortable in the shelter that they really get, they start feeling like it's home. It is not home. It is temporary. But having an opportunity to move them from the shelter to transitional housing, which is 90 days in the shelter, up to a year in transitional housing, where then they're working, they're paying rent. But what's important is that we will continue to case manage.
Right.
So they still have that connection to the shade tree. They still have somebody they can turn to and ask questions, get support from, help give them direction. They can take advantage of the classes. They can use the computer lab, the employment program if they want to look for a different job. And so we're not letting them just go.
Right.
I don't know. As I said, we really don't want people falling back into homelessness. And so having some funds set aside if they hit a hard month, if their car breaks.
Right.
And if you're living on cash, most people have a credit card or two. And, and in a month where something unexpected happens,
They can
and if you
cover
haven't
it.
saved for unexpected things, we turn to credit cards. Our women don't necessarily have that option. So having some funds set aside that if they hit a month where, they're in verge of, if they're not going to make rent, they're going to be out, having those funds available to help them with the rent that month, but then addressing whatever that is that came up. So how do we, plan for this in the future? Putting something aside in savings every paycheck so they can build a reserve fund. And we're talking about it internally right now. I said, I don't know, excuse me, I don't know if the perfect solution is to stay with them for 12 months or 15 months perhaps, because my goal is shelter to transitional to affordable permanent housing for families. So we want to make sure that they that year in transitional, that we're there with them to go down that journey with them and to be their support system. Keep them connected to other resources in the community that they may not be aware of as they are getting back on their feet and their needs change.
Right.
and then getting them moved into that permanent housing when they know they're secure, they've got
They're on
the
their
job,
own
they've
2
got it
feet.
figured
Right.
out,
Right.
and they are really, you know, secure in knowing that they can do this.
Now, you're the largest shelter of your kind here in the state, where you are 24 hours.
We
Yeah,
are.
but yeah, you're there all the time for them. Veterans Village does that to a certain degree, but you're talking about taking women and children who maybe under dire circumstances, or like you said, have lost everything. And let's really, really emphasize this with your program. I personally believe that there is still a perception in this community that homelessness is somehow something people bring on themselves, like they're careless, or they didn't spend their money well, or they shouldn't have married that person. I did a show a couple of shows ago where this was a very educated young woman who just happened to meet an abusive man, and the family kind of knew something was wrong, but by the time they all caught on, it was a really dire situation. So I always urge people not to jump to a conclusion, because domestic violence or these types of emergency situations can happen to women of all socioeconomic backgrounds and all ethnic backgrounds. This doesn't play favorites.
No, and I've said, in my mind, domestic abuse and violence, even homelessness, it doesn't discriminate.
Right.
Doesn't care if you're black, you're white, you have a PhD or a GED. It can happen to anyone. We've had a woman with us who was married to a dentist, living in a very affluent neighborhood. Things happened within the relationship, within the practice, and he cleaned out their bank accounts. She came to stay with us. The only thing she had left was her very cute car and what she had in it. You don't know. And one of the things that I really preach within our building is that under that roof, it's a community. While they're there, everyone's expected to respect each other, to support each other, and to contribute to the community, and to not judge. Everybody's there, and not by choice.
Right.
Nobody wanted to check in to the shade tree.
This isn't a hotel,
They'd much
folks.
rather be at Bellagio or
Right,
somewhere, I'm
yes,
sure.
exactly.
But while they are there, to remember, don't worry about everybody else. Worry about you.
Right.
And what you're trying to do. Everybody has their own reason for being there, and you know what? Your business is your business. Don't worry about what brought other people here. But while you are here, because we have about 130 women and children with us right now from all walks of life. So everybody just needs to get along and be supportive and concentrate on moving forward.
Right. Now, the first time we had you on, there was just sort of a big brouhaha in the community because you'd lost your transitional program.
Yep.
But there's work underway right now to just not only get that back underway, but you're making little inroads in terms of getting women back out there.
Yes. Isn't that funny? That was my first month on the
Right.
job. It was like, welcome to Vegas. Let's close the program and deal with the onslaught that came with it. But it was necessary.
Yeah.
And you know what? Not all choices are easy choices, but you have to make them. Because in the end, the Shade Tree, even though we're nonprofit, we're a business. And I can't provide help to people if I don't have the resources to do it.
Right.
So we are partnering with Veterans Village. They are rehabbing some buildings at one of their sites. One of those apartment buildings will be for the Shade Tree. And we'll have 16 units that we will be able to move women and families, women and their children into. There'll be a doggy park. They can take their pets with them if they have pets staying with us. There'll be a playground for the kids. It's located on just the perfect public transit corners.
Right. Yeah.
So you can
it's
get
like down there, like East Charleston.
yeah, it's what
Fremont,
they call
yeah.
the 5 corners
Right.
there. So you can get out to Green Valley, you
Yeah.
can get downtown, you can get anywhere really easy from there. Because a lot of our women, they may not have a vehicle yet. So public transportation, it needs to be accessible and convenient.
Right.
They will have, the apartments will be fully furnished. We will fully stock those kitchens with all of the things that they need. And we, as we move them, we set them up with groceries for at least a month. We've moved 3 women out so far into one of the other Veteran Village locations because they had some openings to kind of do a trial run.
Sure.
And We have a great foundation here in town, the Joseph's Family Foundation. We put out a list of needs every month on our Facebook page, and people actually watch for it and expect it, and they're like, where's the list for April? Where's the list for May?
Right.
But I added 30-day bus passes to it last month because we
So
have
smart.
so many women getting jobs, but they need to be able to get there and back.
Right.
And they responded and donated 25 30-day bus passes.
Wow.
So these first 3 women that we moved, I gave them each 2 months of transportation.
Wow.
You know, I thought, I don't want you to worry about whether you can get to work or back.
Right.
We have them available. That's what we asked for. That's what we were provided. And so we are using those, making sure that at least those first few paychecks, you know what, we want them to be able to put as much as possible in savings, take care of their basic expenses,
Right.
but start building a cushion as they're planning
Right.
and budgeting, because
Right.
in 2 months they know they're going to have to buy that bus pass.
Right.
And
they're going to have to buy the food that you're providing. So this is the list. This is what you got.
Exactly.
This is how much it costs.
yeah, but giving them time, not just putting them
Sure.
out there and expecting them to do everything overnight.
Right. Right.
Being able to say, you know what, okay, we're going to take this first month, we're going to take it slow, we're going to provide you with some of the things you need. You concentrate on you
Yeah.
and what you're doing. Just get to work every day, do your job, come home, get used to being on your own, be comfortable in your own space.
Yes.
And they're studio apartments. They're nothing luxurious, but they are, and the women are so grateful, and they're humbled by, you know, everybody that's been willing to help. And they are, you know, not taking advantage of that. They're very appreciative, and they are doing the things that they needed to be doing. But they also know they have, in a way, they've got a family around them. We're not
Yeah,
we're
they have
not
a
just
support
putting them
staff,
out there.
right.
You know, and I tell them all the time, we are on this journey with you.
Right.
You know, you don't have to do it by yourself. They have my phone number. I get texts on the weekend. I get calls. And you know what? That's okay.
Yeah.
Because I want to be there for them.
Right, right. When you go out into the community and you talk about the Shade Tree Shelter, are they aware? Because when we had you on, we had Safe Nest on, and a lot of people didn't realize that. I didn't even realize that they were 2 entirely different programs, but that yours is much more inclusive when you talk about just, it's not so just for one set of women. This is really for women who have, even if they're single parents, they're families.
Yes. We, you know, like I said, right now we're about 60%, you know, domestic violence and abuse, about 40% just homeless for whatever reason. We are the only shelter downtown that takes children. So I've got from day-old infants to, you know, kids that are getting ready to graduate from high school that are there with their moms. People do get Safe Nest and Shade Tree confused a lot. Safe Nest provides, you know, a very, very critical service and program to the community, but they are specifically domestic violence and abuse.
That's all they do.
They, what's unique to them as well is they also work with the abuser. They have court advocates who go to court with the women to help them through things. So they're very, I guess you could say they're very specialized.
Right. Yeah.
Where we, you know, we're just trying to help women and children in crisis for whatever that reason is that brings them to us.
In the what we call the
Corridor of Hope.
The Corridor of Hope. Are you seeing improvement in the Corridor of Hope of the homeless? And when people, if you've gotten downtown, the Corridor of Hope is this little area off of it's like Four-Master and Main down there.
Yeah.
But you still have the folks who are camped out, and there is still I perceive a certain element of the homeless population that really doesn't want to go into a shelter.
I think if they want to come into a shelter, they will come in.
Right.
But no, there are people who are perfectly happy living how they're living, and they've been doing it for quite a while. And what I see is some of those people who don't want to come in really need mental health support and programs. We talk about that a lot down there. The courtyard that the city is developing, I think it is a work in progress. It is helping. In fact, this morning as I drove by on my way to work, they had the pop-up showers there. There was a mobile health unit there. So if people are on the street and they're not willing to come in, at least they're getting some of the services they need. They're
Right.
getting some care, they're getting food, they're getting hygiene and some health services. And they're also being connected to some of the other community resources.
Right.
What I have seen, though, is that the courtyard has attracted additional people down to the neighborhood because just like in any community, even within the homeless community, word spreads fast.
Sure.
People talk. And so Catholic Charities, for instance, Deacon Tom was saying they've seen an influx of new people coming in for meals and coming in for services that they've never seen before.
Right.
I think it's great that people are finding out that the courtyard's there and services are available.
Right.
But again, it's putting some extra stress, I guess
Right.
you could say, on the neighborhood and on the organizations in the neighborhood that are already serving people that have needs.
Right.
So we will continue to see how the courtyard progresses. They are bringing in Kenny Main, who built the, you could call it, it almost looks like a college campus in San Antonio that has been so successful, that has multiple buildings and a host of services and resources. So I think right now the city's trying to take the best of what they see there to get started,
Right.
and have plans to continue growing it out. For a nonprofit that relies on state funding and county funding and city funding, as well as private,
Right.
among ourselves as service providers, we do have some conversations. Will we be in competition?
Right.
We know that the courtyard isn't going to be sustainable on city funding forever, that they're going to have to go out and raise money, look for private partnerships. And so do we see some grant dollars possibly going away in the future that are being redirected to other efforts? We're not sure.
Right.
Are we going to have competition for the philanthropic funding in the community that has traditionally gone to these organizations
Right.
as their approach to invest in the courtyard? We don't know. So it's really
It really does come
sitting
down
back
to
and
money,
watching a
too.
little.
Sure. I mean, that's one of the conversations that I've had, is that we are a very affluent community when you really get down to it. But the same people are being hit up, for every little organization, and I'm not saying little, I mean big organizations too, that say, we've got this massive effort and we need your dollars. How many dollars are actually available to be spread around? These are the conversations you folks are having amongst yourselves.
Well, exactly. I think like any community, even the community I came from, you look at Las Vegas and the population-wise is huge, but very similar to Anchorage, Alaska, where I lived. Massive population, but within there, a very small, tight community. And the same people are the ones that are funding theater, funding education, funding health, funding homelessness. And there are only so many dollars. I think for people who live in the community who are philanthropic, it's a matter of choice. You
Right.
really have to set your priorities and decide what causes, what organizations are closest to your house. Is it pets? Is it children? Is it education?
Right.
They're all choices that we have to make because we all have to budget. And I tell people, I said, we have the shade tree. We're not the money tree. I can't walk outside and just pull more money off the tree, So I think we have to be creative.
Right.
In where we look for funding and the types of events and community things we do to attract funding. I think we also need to not look to the same people. We
All
need to
the
be
time.
making new friends all the time. And I tell people that, what do you need? I said, I need friends.
Right.
Because friends have friends, and friends like to bring their friends along and bring them in. Our kids that are in high school right now, we have a lot of volunteer groups that come in, teaching philanthropy and what it is to give back at an early age. UNLV and the student clubs and groups, our millennials.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, our younger people, my daughter's 22, and that 22 to 30-year-old age group, boy, they are about the pets.
Right.
So there's different things that resonate with different populations and age groups.
Right.
And we need to make sure that we're not just casting a net out there and seeing what we can catch.
Right.
but we're being very deliberate in building relationships and making sure that we're providing opportunities to the people who care about what we're doing.
Right.
To fund things within there, whether it be operating or whether it be a specific project or a need, but making the connection that counts and matters for both sides.
Well, if you can log on to the Shade Tree's website, you can see all of the various programs that they provide, and you can pick and choose something that you'd like to. And one of the things I really wanted to emphasize during the show and having you on, thank you so much, is that, don't think that this is some sort of big thing that you have to donate, the rest of your life for, or you've got to give up your weekend. It can be something as simple as, trust me, those of us who have dogs, the scooping of poop is a really big thing. So you can go over to Noah's house and really make an effort. Or if you have clothing that your babies aren't wearing, and you're not going to have any more kids, think about the Shade Tree Shelter, because I've got all these babies coming in. I recently started cleaning out my garage, and I couldn't believe the just vast array of stuff I'd accumulated over the years, and started to make a choice. Where am I going to start donating these things, and how do I get these things to the different organizations? So it's not like some big thing that you have to do. It can be something as simple as baby clothes. It can be something as simple as, even if you have canned items, like non-perishable items, food items, anything that could really help a family in need.
Well, and in particular, as we're moving women out into the community, they don't need a vase to put flowers in. I said, what they need, we're trying to set them up at the basics with a set of dishes, with some pots and pans, with
Some
bath towels, glasses,
right.
Silverware.
Yes.
People don't think about silverware.
Yes.
It's one thing to have your freezer and fridge full of food that somebody provided. It's another thing, how am I going to eat it, or how am I going to cook
Knives
it?
and forks. Right.
Microwaves. We had a wonderful couple where had just sold their RV. And they had a couple different coffee makers. Can you use them? I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the things that really, help people get on their feet, the basics.
Right.
Things that a lot of people maybe don't think about when you're getting started again. Sheets.
I'm glad you said that, because I've got a coffee maker sitting in my pantry that I haven't touched for ever.
Is it? It's just taking up space,
it's just
isn't
taking
it?
up space, yeah. And sheets that I'll never use again. So yeah, sheets and towels and blankets and just those types of things. Especially if you've gone out and people do this. They buy new bedding, and so what do they do with this? It's like, bring it to Shade Tree. If it's usable, it's got to be something that can be turned around for families immediately. We're not talking about junk. We're talking about something that you're not using, but that's totally usable.
Yes, and a lot of people don't realize, like I said, right now we have about 130 women and children staying with us. So you think about that, 130 beds. We provide all the twin sheet. They're twins. We provide all the sheets. We provide all of the comforters or blankets. We provide all of the bath towels and washcloths. And so somebody may stay a day, somebody may stay 30 days, somebody may stay up to the 90 days. But we are constantly going through those things.
Right.
Because we don't make them provide it for themselves. And so the contributions from the community, as a matter of fact, since we moved here, I still have a bed set that's in a box, a moving box I haven't unpacked. Because I thought, what am I going to do with that? Now I have a bunch of sets of sheets.
Sure.
So as we're going through things and deciding what we're keeping, what we can use, I've been setting things aside.
Yes.
I just cleaned out all of my winter clothes and unpacked, put my summer clothes and stuff back in the closet. And I thought, you know what? I didn't wear that this year. I didn't wear this year.
Right.
I've been holding on to things, and there's a perfectly good use.
Yeah. Well, I ran into a woman at the dollar store yesterday, and we were giving each other intervention because we realized that we had stuff in our garage that we would buy in bulk. And really, how many Sharpies do you need? And how many little, the little cloths, the micro fiber cloths that you need? And I said, what, between the two of us, we said, we're going to go in our garages and we're going to start donating stuff, because this is ridiculous, that we have it. So let's give it away, because we're not using it either. So think about these. These are the little things, folks. The Shade Tree Shelter can definitely use them. 1 West Owens Avenue. And again, go on the website. Glad to have Stacey Lockhart here as our guest again. 1 year after she came to town, it was like, oh, the Shade Tree Shelter is really humming over there. And so whatever you think you're interested in, you can find it on their website. Pick something. go over there, see what you can do to help out. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, but thank you for having me on again.
I'm so glad that you came. We'll be right back with more of Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese. We're going to talk to Bob David from the Las Vegas Rescue Mission. He's going to talk about their programs that you can also help out with. Stay back.
Crazy Terry here with your car care tip of the day. Today's tips on cooling systems. This vehicle's got about 182,000 miles on it, so if you're checking the coolant, check the hoses too. Just feel them and see if they're soft or any signs of fatigue for the mileage on it. They don't feel bad, they look like they're still the original hose, but you want to make sure you don't go too long with these hoses because they will eventually deteriorate, cause a problem. In this case, this car's got a visible leak. The customer brought it to us. We'll pop the hood and check the cooling system. First, we just relieve any pressure might be on the cap, remove the cap, take a look inside. We see it's kind of low. Now we'll start our inspection. What we found on this one is the top tank is leaking. It's got a crack in it. Pretty common for these plastic radiators to do that. We want to get to a shop right away because severe engine damage can result from overheating condition like this. In this case, it was pretty easy to see the crack was right on the top tank, but a lot of times we'll have to pressurize the system to locate the exact leak. Could be a hose in the back, could be underneath. Some of these are hard to find, but in this case, a very common leak, the top tank. When we're testing a cooling system, it's okay to use just water, but you want to make sure when you're filling it up properly, it's a 50-50 mix of antifreeze and water. It needs the water to make the chemical work, so don't just put straight antifreeze. 50-50 mix is the best way to go. Keep it clean, keep it rust-free. So as you can see, we got a pretty active leak. You got to get this fixed or there's going to be some engine problems. If you're going to top off your own coolant, it's really not that hard. If you got a radiator cap, just make sure it's not hot. Take the cap off and take a look. In this case, we're pretty full here, but what we have is the overflow jugs empty. So we'll just add that. Once again, check your manufacturer's specs to make sure what type of coolant you have. In this case, we're using the good old green. There's gold, there's red, there's yellow, all types out there. Just want to make sure you're staying with your manufacturer recommended coolant. And that's really all there is to it. The cooling system is a major component. You'll want to service that regularly. If you have a problem, it could be too late and cost you thousands of dollars. If ever you have a problem, come into Sun Valley Automotive. It's no charge to look at your cooling system. This is Crazy Terry with your car care tip of the day.
And joining us now is Bob David. He's the Director of Development with the Las Vegas Rescue Mission. It's been there in some shape or form on West Bonanza since 1970 when it was started by Pastor Ed Compton and a businessman. One of the things that is unique in your organization, this is a Christian faith-based organization.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
it's not just, helping the homeless. This is a comprehensive program that's also designed to take care of the spirit.
Amen.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful introduction, and thank you for having us on today. One of the things that I always like to start off with is the word holistic. A lot of people look at that word and they say, what does that really mean? Well, in medicine it means one thing, and in social environments it may mean another, but in our world it's everything. It's taking a broken puzzle that walks in the door, who has its own box, and they throw it on the ground.
And in your organization, you have a very wide-ranging. Let's talk about the vast, actually very, very comprehensive programs. But in Ms. Lockhart's program, it's just designed for women and children. But yours deals with the whole family, men, women, and children. And one of the things I didn't realize until I was doing my research is you actually have an aspect of a program that deals with homeless men who are single dads. People don't think about that. They think of women and
Sure.
children, or a mother or father with children, but homeless dads who are single parents.
Sure.
I mean, you're taking care of everything.
Well, it's just like, when you look at a situation and you have a single dad that comes to your door and he has 4 children in tow, and that night we had to call Deacon Tom, and we had to call our partnerships, our collaborations, and say, we don't have a place for this gentleman tonight.
Because you're not a 24-hour service.
No, we close our gates at night, but there is a back gate that we have, but we have to make arrangements for those people to come. But in this particular instance, we got motivated because we had to say that 2-letter word, and that's no.
Right.
4 months later, through a generous donor, Because one of the things about the Las Vegas Rescue Mission that a lot of people do not know is we do not take any state or federal funding.
Right. This is all private money.
So we were able to renovate some area of the mission, and we now have 3 beautiful apartments for single dads
Wow.
and their children. They have their
That's
own
amazing.
bathroom, they have their own bunk beds, they get fresh linens, and then they have access, obviously, to our nourishing meals. And it's not a cup of soup or a donut. It's great food.
Now, yours is a very wide-ranging recovery mission. You're taking folks who have substance abuse problems, broken families, and you're giving them the tools they need to not only deal with whatever addiction they have or whatever recovery issue they have, and then get them back on their feet.
Absolutely. Number one, the key word is voluntary. We do not take court-ordered. We don't take anybody from jail. What we do is we take people that are just being sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Right.
And they start their journey. Right. They come into our program. It's a 12 to 15 month program, depending on the pace of which they can go after it. And we try to literally put back all of the pieces, not only just their life skills and just general life things that they have to deal with, but also transition, job, interviews, IDs, all of the things that trouble these folks, because all we're doing is taking God's picture and putting it back together.
And I will say the words for you, Jesus Christ.
Amen.
You're dealing with their souls. You're dealing with their spirits, and that's the underpinning of whatever the homelessness or the recovery issues. That's a symptom. That's not the basic problem,
Right.
which is what is happening with your relationship with your higher power, whatever you call that
Sure.
person. Right?
Absolutely. And one of the things that we ask people to respect when they come in, we do not pull any punches about, we are a ministry.
Right.
We are centered through the Word of God, and we utilize that in our recovery program. We're not saying that, guess what, you may have other differences, but while you're here recovering, these are the tools that we have found that work and have worked since Pastor Compton, his wife Bee, and some local business people started this ministry with a simple bologna sandwich, a New Testament Bible, and a cup of water.
Right.
And
right.
it blows my mind today to see where we are, but the same people keep coming.
Yeah.
I mean, not the same people, but
the
same situation.
issues. Right, yeah. And your campus has grown tremendously from that little storefront to, I mean, how many buildings do you have now?
I think it's right at 12. We started with 200 square feet, and we're up to 2 acres.
And your outreach in the community, just looking at your sponsors, I think a lot of people are very familiar with Larry Altrowitz at Walker Furniture because he does the home for the holidays, and he's very involved. But you have a wide cross-section of sponsors from all different walks of life who come together for the Las Vegas Rescue Mission. And I just kind of get the sense when I was kind of looking through, doing my research, is that is part of the appeal of your faith-based ministry, because they see it touches their hearts on that level too.
Well, here's the thing. If somebody's going to buy a home in Las Vegas, they live here. They own. This is their community.
Right.
We guarantee people, and I think what the attraction is, Rikki, is this. There's a misnomer out there that Las Vegans or all of the strips, all the money gets gone somewhere else.
Right.
That is not
That's
true.
not true.
We have some of the most generous people. Larry Altowitz being a great leader of that, his family, his foundation, his employees.
Right.
And then it just absolutely catches on fire. We have about 83% of the food that we provide to our homeless community is donated by most of the strip hotels and the airport and places like Starbucks and Whole Foods, and I could go on for 3 hours.
Right, yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing, and they're in community. It's their part of the wheel that they're helping us turn.
Yeah, and you're out there and you're doing your thing, but one of the things that really got me, and the reason why I wanted Bob to be on today was Stacey. So I'm driving last week, and the radio, SOS Radio, is doing this bottled water drive, and that's the first thing I heard. It's like, a bottled water drive? Why would you need a bottled water drive? But what I got the sense of as this progressed was it just really touched the hearts because, and I emphasized that when I was talking to Stacey Lockhart, is a lot of times people get confused. They think that they've got to make this big, huge effort, or if they're not a Walker Furniture, or if they're not a Starbucks, that they can't contribute. But when people realized that they could bring bottled water, it was amazing. Yeah, what was the fine? I think when I was tuning in, you guys were up to like 21,000 bottles, and then the goal was 35,000. And I think I posted on my Facebook page, I think they're going to go over 40 at this rate. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, it's been awesome. The count this morning was 26,000 bottles. Okay. We have people calling with credit cards. Can you please go to Costco or Sam's? They pay for a pallet. They send us the receipt. We go pick it up.
Wow.
But I want to share a very quick story.
Sure.
It's the sweetest story, I think, of all. I got a phone call, and the lady called in. She said, my name is, and she says, I'm downstairs. They put it through to my office. I'm downstairs. I have a case of water, but I cannot carry it. So we went downstairs. Here was this lady. She was probably 85 years old.
Wow.
Still drives.
Right.
Amen.
Uh-huh.
And she had one case of water, and she says, I hope that helps. That's all I can afford.
Oh, yeah.
That's over.
Yeah.
That's all we needed. That's the gas that keeps people like us, like Shade Tree, going.
Yeah.
Because it's that involvement that absolutely brings a tear to your eye, that knows that no matter what your socioeconomic situation is, you can make a difference.
Yes, yes. And that's why I was emphasizing with her and with you as well, because you have families. You have folks who, whatever reason that they've gone through, they've lost everything. So you might not think that this is really a big deal, but I feel really guilty because I didn't say this to Stacey when she was on, but I found when I was looking through my garage, that treasure trove of stuff that Rikki is a hoarder, a whole bag of leashes. Why do I have so many leashes? I've only got 2 dogs. I guess at some point I thought I needed leashes, but I also found a lot of baby toys. And I think I probably bought the baby toys thinking that my fur babies would like them, but no, I've got baby toys. So, you know, if you've got kids who have grown up and they're not using these toys or they're not using these clothes, man, the Las Vegas Rescue Mission could use it. So you don't have to necessarily go out and buy something.
Nope.
You might have some really valuable stuff in your closet, in your drawers, in your garage, in your back seat. I'm not going to tell you what I found in my back seat. But these are the things that you really want to encourage people. You can get involved in every single level. And I love the page that you have where you talk about how people can volunteer and all the different choices that they have. In your thrift store, 100% of those proceeds
Stay right here.
So folks, if you're like me and you've got like all this stuff in your garage, how many shovels does one woman need, really? Take them down there, the thrift store, and that's 100% of the proceeds. You've got power tools, you've got stuff that that's workable and usable. These are things that your thrift store can use, and that's a simple way of giving back to the community.
It's a simple phone call. We have 3 trucks that operate within the valley. Everything comes in, we inventory it. Those things, there's 2 areas that go through our thrift store. There's thrift store to the public, and there's thrift store to the homeless community. Right. We open that 2 days a week, and they get to come in, our homeless community, and get 6 items. So you can get a pair of underwear, a pair of pants, shoes, obviously, and they get to shop, and it's theirs, and nobody's taking it. Right. And when they leave, we give them a bottle of water. We give them a hygiene kit. We tell them that Jesus loves them, and guess what? They'll be in that line again. Right. And that's okay, because generosity is there because we've been asked to distribute it. Right. And we are giving everything that we get out as soon as we can, because it's not ours.
Right, right. Well, even things sort of like, you just mentioned that, the simple things like toothpaste, underwear, socks, soap. Yeah. You know, if you're out there and if you're like, a dollar store addict like I am, you guys know I'll admit that. So if you're going to buy 1 bar of soap, buy 5, because you're going to spend, you're not getting out of the dollar store for less than $20. So let's not even have this conversation with ourselves. So buy a couple of extra items. You don't have to have this big, this 1 case of water. Right. Makes a big difference to that person who doesn't have any water.
Sure.
Yeah. So whatever you can afford, whatever you can do, it doesn't have to be some big truckload of stuff. Nope. It can be something as simple as some underwear.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And one of the things I would just want to add is that it's addiction recovery. We feed 1,000 people a day, 365 days a year. We have male and female recovery programs. We have family housing. We have single mom and single dad housing. And we have emergency shelter, 141 beds every night. And I can tell you right now, it's very, very few and far between when they're not completely filled.
Right.
And that operates 365 days a year. So to all our 19,000 volunteers, our 30,000 donors, thank you. Rikki, thank you for having the Las Vegas Rescue Mission on today, because what you're doing is helping us educate our community.
I'm so glad that you could be on, because I think this is something that we can't talk about enough. Again, I think that especially for those of us who live, like I live in Centennial Hills, it's not like I see, unless I'm driving to a certain part of town, I don't see a lot of homeless people. So it's easy if you're living in Anthem or you're living in Summerlin or whatever, in these different our little suburbs that we've got going on. If you're not seeing the problem every day, it's easy to think that we don't really have a problem, or, you know, when you see the big, like the bottled water drives, think, oh, all these people are doing these wonderful things. No, you still have hundreds of people, of families who are suffering, who need help. Yeah.
And it's partnerships like this in Shade Tree and our family at SOS that took the time and effort and energy to put that message out. They keep getting updates. They're just amazing. So kudos to them. And we're just so thankful that for 48 years we've been in this community. We want another 48 years, or, as Stacey said previous, we'd really like to be out of business.
Right. But in the meantime, if you folks can help out, please do. Bob David, my guest today, he's the Director of Development at the Las Vegas Rescue Mission. They're at 480 West Bonanza. So, you know, go down, even if all you do is drive around in these different corridors of town, and just see there are folks who are living on the streets who need help. And you don't have to do, it doesn't have to be this big thing. It could be just volunteering. It could be maybe just some extra, you know, soap or, you know, toothpaste or toothbrushes. You know, those, you don't even stop to think of toothbrushes.
No, and I just want to say one last thing. If people feel moved to give money, please take that money and put it into a case of water, put it in your car, and when you roll up to somebody who has a sign, please just give them water, because money is not going to help them.
Right.
It's going to give them an ability to make a choice that they shouldn't be making. It's going to hurt them, and you're just perpetuating that to be continued. Help them with a bottle of water. Tell them there's a Shade Tree. Tell them there's the Las Vegas Rescue Mission. There are alternatives to that choice.
Or even just send it to the Las Vegas Rescue Mission or Shade Tree directly, or stop by and hand it over. You know what? It's okay if you're going to give somebody on the street $5. Just go ahead and give it to the charity directly, because at least that way you know that that money is going to a good cause, as opposed to maybe getting spent on something that's not really a good cause at all.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on the show
Rikki.
today. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese. Lots of options. Please go on these websites, because there are just a ton of ways that you can give back. But in the meantime, if you're out and about, go by these shelters. They're all kind of down in that sort of like downtown, off downtown corridor, so you don't have to go far, and you can see how our family members, our families here in Las Vegas are living, and how you can help. So we'll see you back here next week.